Okay, now we're almost done with our shakers. I like to add a little bit of sidechain compression on those, so let's just group our shakers here. Highlight them, right click, group tracks, and it's created another group in the group. Call it shakers. And now we already saw how we can do some sidechain compression within Ableton. Let's go to Dynamics, Compressor, open the sidechain option, choose input from our kick, and then bring down the threshold. So it gets ducked a little bit. This is also very handy because kicks can have a fairly long tail, and the whole signal is going to tell the compressor what to do if you don't use the EQ section. So if we turn on this and we filter out the lows, it's just going to use the signal above, let's say 336 Hertz to control the compressor. And if we go to this view, we can see how it affects the way it gets ducked. This way it's just a very short attack. If we feed it the whole signal, also the tail of the kick is gonna influence the compressor, and we're gonna lose much more signal, and it's not gonna groove so much. So let's just go for a reasonable setting. So the kick still punches through a little bit more because the shakers get ducked, but we don't lose our shakers completely. Now this would also be a good point in time to set up a signal for the compressor to compress throughout our whole track without just using the kick that we created for our track. Because maybe some sections there's not going to be a kick, and then the compressor has nothing to base its work on. So let's create a ghost kick track. Let's just duplicate the kick that we have. Call it ghost kick. You know, ghosts are white, obviously, so and then this will be just in the track everywhere. Now this should be turned off. It's just a signal for our compressor. So let's go back to the shakers and tell it to use our ghost kick. And now we don't have to worry about where our actual kick plays because we have the signal the entire time. And there we have it, our shakers. Now, this is already grooving quite a lot, but I still want some variations, some one-shots here and there. And an easy way to go about this is to go for very typical, because we're making tech house, to go for the typical house sounds, and they all originate from old drum machines, like the 909, for example. I think in any Ableton version you're going to have an included 909 drum rack, so when you go to drums over here, there should be some sort of 909 core kit. It doesn't really matter which 909 kick it is. You can even use an 808 or a 707. As long as you have a drum rack and some samples you can play with, it doesn't matter. But we also included this 909 core kit in the pack, just in case for some reason your installation doesn't have it. So let's create a MIDI track, throw in the core kit, create a MIDI, and now we just want some one-shots here and there turn on the groove because they should be in the same groove as the rest of the track. Let's see what we have. We have some toms. I feel like if this would be looped, this would be a bit too repetitive, so let's make our pattern a little bit longer, like this. Take away the tom so it doesn't play too often. And now just make sure you have some elements, one element that plays maybe every 16 beats, one that plays every 8 beats, so it kind of, you have different sub-rhythms going on the whole time. Put this here. The rim, also very typical sound for house music. And maybe the ride. Just a little bit of rhythm. Now these are very loud. We can go in the drum rack now and just change those sounds individually. Bring down the volume of all of them at first. Okay, now the ride is a little bit too long for my taste. Let's make this shorter. This symbol stands for the instrument. Let's open the instrument and just bring down the sustain. Now if we do it like this, we're not going to hear anything because the decay is just 1 millisecond, so it takes 1 millisecond for the sample to decay to 0 or infinite decibels, negative infinite decibels. So let's bring up the decay so it can fade out a little bit longer. Like this. That sounds good. And the toms, we just want them for a little bit of rhythm, but they have too much low end. It's going to conflict with the rest of our drums and our bass. So in the instrument view, we can also turn on a high pass filter. We did this with our kick in the beginning. Now we're just using a high pass instead of a low pass. And like so should be enough. Now let's also give this a little bit of room. Use the garage reverb we've used before. Throw it on here. Turn down the decay, we just wanted a little bit of room feel. The rim is still quite loud. Let's bring that down. Rim shot. The clap is also still quite loud. And one other little secret that I like to use is the random pan option, which you can find under controls. If you just bring this up a little bit, it's going to pan the samples randomly left or right, giving it a little bit more of an alive feeling. And we can do the same thing with our ride. Controls, random pan. bring up the volume because I can't really hear it anymore. All right. So now we've also got some one-shots.